Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Parkinson's Foundation's Wellness Wednesdays webinar. Thank you for joining us. We will begin soon. Please know that we are recording today's presentation, and you will receive a follow-up email from us with a link to the recording and additional resources in about 1 week. Thank you for being here. Before we get into it, I want to remind you about our other PD Health at Home virtual programs. Each week, we offer sessions tailored to support people with Parkinson's and their care partners, including Mindfulness Mondays, Wellness Wednesdays, Fitness Fridays, expert briefings, and our Spanish language series, EP Salud en Casa. Be sure to visit our website to see what's coming up and explore our archived videos on YouTube. This week's Wellness Wednesday, we will learn small changes that can make a big difference. The next Wellness Wednesday, we'll learn small changes that can make a big difference in your daily safety and well-being. Living with Parkinson's can make daily tasks more challenging, but with the right tools and strategies, you can stay safe and independent. So join us on July 2nd for Everyday Safety at Home and register at parkinson.org/PD Health. PD Health at Home is presented by the Light of Day Foundation, whose generosity has made this programming possible. Thank you, Light of Day. Today's Wellness Wednesday webinar, we focus on how to ease the movement symptoms of Parkinson's disease. Movement symptoms can complicate the daily activities a person living with Parkinson's once did easily, like getting dressed, eating, sleeping, and even walking. It can be hard to adjust to these changes, but there are many things you can do to support a good quality of life. And today we'll learn practical tools and strategies that can help you address the movement challenges that are common in PD. Leading the discussion today is Senior Occupational Therapist Rachel Rose. Rachel Rose is a senior occupational therapist at the University of Iowa Healthcare, specializing in neurorehabilitation and hand therapy. She leads OT services for UIHC's Interdisciplinary Parkinson's Clinic and is certified in LSVT Big and Tai Chi for fall prevention and arthritis. Rachel created UIHC's Driving Risk Assessment Program, collaborating across disciplines to support safe mobility. She regularly presents on evidence-based OT care and has been a faculty member for the Parkinson's Foundation Team Training Program since 2019. Rachel is also pursuing her brain injury specialist certification. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. All right, let me share my screen. I'll get my slides up. Thanks for your patience. Technology, we love it.
It's coming.
There we go. Are we good?
If you would just put it in presenter mode. There it is. Thank you, Rachel.
Yes, here we go. All right, so thank you again. I'm Rachel. I'm really excited to talk to you all today. Thank you for being here in the middle of your day. And we are going to talk about tips for daily living, easing those movement challenges. So Krista gave me a great introduction. Thank you so much. I am a team training OT faculty member, and also with my certifications, I do talk about the benefits and the evidence of Tai Chi as well as LSVT Big for those with Parkinson's. Today, we are going to go over our learning objectives, which are to identify the movement symptoms and mobility challenges of Parkinson's. This might be a review or maybe some good new information for folks. Understand how movement symptoms, excuse me, and mobility challenges impact daily living for those with Parkinson's and their care partners. And then I will teach some practical tips to manage these challenges for daily tasks and around the home. And I'll also give some good resources and support for both persons. All right. So I added this graphic, and this goes over many of the symptoms of Parkinson's. So the early symptoms, the non-motor symptoms, primary and secondary, and we are going to be speaking about that blue box in the bottom left-hand corner, the motor symptoms. And specifically, the cardinal signs, movement symptoms we have in Parkinson's often are bradykinesia, or that slowness of movement, where people often tell me, they're like, I can do a task, it just takes me a really long time. Second, rigidity, some of that muscle stiffness. Sometimes the first symptom of PD could be shoulder pain from some of the stiffness with walking and that reduced arm swing. Tremor, often resting, it can be action as well. And then the fourth one listed here, postural instability, leading to some balance and some fall issues. Usually that's more later in Parkinson's. And if it's at the beginning, that can be indicative of a typical Parkinson's. But mainly the primary motor symptoms of PD are listed here. So you might experience some of these things. In addition to that, some other movement symptoms that we'll talk about today are freezing, where those feet feel like they're stuck to the floor, almost like they're glued and you can't get going, but your body wants to continue. Fascination, where you're going really quickly and you have difficulty with stopping, can lead to falls. The shuffling, which has a increased risk for tripping. The dyskinesias, those involuntary movements, often association with peak dose for the carbidopa levodopa, dystonia, those muscle contractions. They can be painful and they can occur in the hands, the neck, or the feet. Micrographia often is a sign, motor symptom related to Parkinson's, where that cramped handwriting occurs, that very small, maybe sloped upward handwriting. Hypomimia, which affect your facial muscles. So we have muscles in our face, and often that can be a mask-like presentation. And then impaired saccades, which those 6 muscles around your eyes, those can be impacted with Parkinson's as well, where saccades are where you're making those eye jumps. So if you're looking at the screen right now, and then maybe you look over to the doorway and then back, and those eyes jump from target to target, those can be impacted as well. And with those movement symptoms, what can occur? Stiffness, pain, poor balance and falls. Fatigue is something that can occur from those motor symptoms. Difficulties with coordination, whether that's gross motor, whether that's fine motor with your fingers, buttoning, zippering, tying shoes, maybe reaching for something in a cabinet, stooped posture, kind of that forward flexion can occur. And then with those symptoms, increased assist from care partners is typically the result. And then there is this interplay where movement symptoms can impact the non-motor symptoms, and this bidirectional relationship can occur. So we know with all of that, this graphic kind of just shows, if you have Parkinson's, that those movement symptoms can be there and impact almost everything you do in a day. What's meaningful to you, whether that's exercising, showering, resting, driving, grocery shopping, participating in your leisure tasks, those types of things we know. And what can we do about it? So make sure you're talking with your healthcare providers, work with your local care team or wherever you doctor and go to clinics, work with your OT, your PT, bring these things up when you notice the movement symptoms, and then what task that you feel like may not be as sharp, or we need just a little fine tuning with, because everybody is so different, and what one person might have as a priority, someone else might not have that priority. So it's really individual. I'm going to go over a very broad array of items that I frequently will recommend and we will use, but not everything is for everybody. So it's really individualized. And then another option is to keep a symptom diary. So oftentimes, with Parkinson's, these symptoms gradually progress. And so oftentimes we're really resilient and these can occur and we just, get on with our day. But really identifying when the symptom is occurring, when it's troubling you, can really help drive what we do as healthcare providers. And then more specifically with today's talk, I wanted to dive into how movement challenges affect our daily life in respect to these bolded categories. Now we could definitely talk about more. So if you have questions, please write them down, put them in the chat, and I will do my best to answer those. But today I will dive into dressing, which those movement challenges, if we think about buttoning, if we even think about looping our armholes. So like in jackets, in long sleeve, maybe orienting the shirt. Tremors can make dressing difficult, it can make it slowed. So we'll go over dressing, eating, and that could be from gripping the silverware, bringing it up to our mouth, maybe navigating with the tremor, the slowness, rigidity of the arms, and then swallowing difficulties. We'll go over sleeping. Oftentimes, it can be difficult getting into bed, maybe turning in bed, mobility in general. So getting A to B in your house, getting to your car, getting to the move, whatever it may be. We'll talk about that and some strategies. Exercise, we know it's a big important factor for people with Parkinson's and care partners. So making sure people can participate and manage fatigue that's associated from the motor symptoms. And then we'll look a little bit at leisure, how to engage, where to start, making sure you're doing things that are fun. And all of these can definitely have an emotional toll on independence and normal routines for folks. So going into dressing right now, what I would do, if you're meeting me for the first time, we would go over how you're doing your daily functioning and where is there a gap between how you want to do it or what's difficult. And a lot of times we'll pull in adaptive equipment. So that might be a pocket dresser, which looks like a little button hook. And just for reference, I will go over the topic and some bullet points, and then the next slide, I'll show you some visuals. So adaptive equipment is really great. A pocket dresser on Amazon, it can go through the buttonhole, loop the button, and kind of pull it through. Sock aids are really great just to help with extra reaching. And then for additional clothing modifications, there are so many advancements with Duluth Trading Company. Magna Ready is a great company. Amazon. If you have a Costco membership, their online has some options. Tommy Hilfiger. So they all have magnets that look like real buttons and they just close easily. You don't have to worry about manipulating. There's Velcro options and adaptive laces. There's so many options for adaptive laces, whether it be like a lock lace, which is a cinch maneuver, elastic laces. Right now, there's even types of footwear like Kizik, Kizik, which has like a built-in shoehorn to help the foot slide in. And all of these things, you just want to make sure you're working with your team to make sure they're safe for your foot. And, sometimes magnets have a contraindication. So just check that those are safe for you. Another good point for dressing is I talk a lot about fabrics. So, I'm in Iowa and we have some really cold winters. So we have to layer up a lot. And oftentimes a simple switch with a sleek long sleeve that is more smooth. And then the outer layer also have a lining of smooth. So they can just shift really nicely, can be a world of difference. Also sizing up for the outerwear, that's okay. Just giving yourself a little more room to get those arms through the armhole. Oftentimes we have people sit while dressing. So if they have balance issues or that forward lean, that can really sway your base of support. So thinking about sitting as well. Talking about energy conservation techniques. For example, if dressing becomes really difficult, maybe could you lay your clothes out the night before? And then you shower, maybe take a rest break, and then you dress seated. Just spreading a task out by days, by time of days, and kind of organizing it can really be helpful versus cramming it all into one succession. And then electric toothbrush and a water flosser are great. You can partner with your dentist just to make sure, you're getting every nook and cranny you need to, but the electric toothbrush, oftentimes you have to just hold the item. And so we can do a hand over hand if there's a tremor just to stabilize. or you can prop your arm up on the counter or a little soft disc for support with that bony end of your elbow. And instead of like doing these long brush strokes, and a water flosser or a water pick are great. And so an OT can really help with dressing strategies to make an individualized plan for what you need, what your body is doing, and your specific movement types that are problematic at that time. So here's some pictures. I have the upper left is a Magna Ready shirt, so it kind of shows the technology. The middle photo of the belt is a ratchet, so it avoids having to put the pin through the opening, and you can kind of cinch it closed. I've had some success with that. The pocket dressers on the upper right, it's a version of a button hook. Below is an Able brand, and they have a lot of front closure bras, front closure pajamas, a great resource for clothing that look, not too medical, that have a good style, because that is important as well. And then lock laces is that center one. That's the cinch technology. So you do have to have pin shrink, but it often is easier than kind of fiddling with the tying. And then Kissick shoes is that bottom right. So just a few heavy hitters that I think are helpful. And maybe you guys have seen some of these things. And oftentimes when we talk about adaptions, it's not an all or nothing. So maybe someday you can button normally, you're feeling good. But on those off days or that off time, it's really nice to have the option to take the stress away. We know stress can make the motor symptoms heighten. So it's not an all or nothing, which I think is a good point to keep in mind. This slide right here is actually from the Parkinson's Foundation. If you go on their website, there's a handout and you can click on all of the blue underlined and it'll take you to the website for the adaptive clothing. It's really helpful to take you right there, and it goes over, and these are some great options. All right, transitioning to eating and meal prep. This is one of my favorite things to teach folks. So with Parkinson's, with the movement symptoms, sometimes depending on the stage, really intentional movements and exaggerating can help. And so oftentimes for eating specifically, I'll record folks. So caregiver, if they're okay, we always clear it, but I'm like, hey, let me record so I can show you what you're doing. And oftentimes what I observe is, we have a spoon in the hand, we're bringing it up and it stops about midway. And then we have our head and our body lean for the spoon. And this position of the arm can make the tremor heightened and kind of exacerbate. And so then I kind of we can trial different spoons if we need to, and people can get a feel for them in their hand. And then I've had a lot of success with, I call it the up and in. So if you're scooping the plate, really thinking about bringing that spoon up and in. So you're intentionally moving that arm to your head, not hovering and hesitating, which can make the tremor worse, or bringing your head down. So that intentional over exaggerating that movement has been really helpful for eating, just keeping that posture good and upright. And then also that goes for cutting food too. So I have some folks who need to cut meat at their house or when they go out to eat, and we practice making big cuts, and you can count in your head 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it might feel like you're putting a lot of effort in, but man, it can really, to other people it looks like you're cutting normal, and that's just kind of that part of Parkinson's where we need to over exaggerate some of the movements to get the job done. Built up utensils are great. You can buy on Amazon just naturally lightweight, larger handled, which can just give a little bit more support to the hand. I found no success with weights, not helpful, that oftentimes fatigue the arm and make it a little worse. And then we use foam tubing. There's different widths that you can add on to forks, spoons, whatever it may be, that are nice to take to restaurants. You can put them in a bag, put them in a purse. Non-slip mats are great if a tremor is really flaring up on one side. You can use Dycem, D-Y-C-E-M, that kind of stabilizes the plate, so your other arm doesn't have to hold. It can kind of rest. We use plate guards or scoop plates, which are cool little devices that have a lip where it makes one-handed eating just a little bit easier. Oftentimes, if you can get pre-cut or easy prep meals, that's something to do. I had one person talk with their grocer about pre-cut, and now I think most grocery stores have the pre-cut veggies or fruits. And so kind of taking that out of it has been helpful for people to still eat healthy if they have difficulty cutting. Moving items to a reachable space. So if you have things on a tall cabinet or a really low drawer, just relocating those simple swaps can just, help keep your balance so you're not in that fall risk position. Meal delivery services, or like a grocery pickup. And this goes again with the pacing, where I've often coached people to maybe, and this takes a little more organization, but once you get in a groove, it's a really good system where you might on a Sunday, you put all your items in your online order system, and then maybe Monday you place it, and then the next day they drop it off, and you can kind of put it all away, and then the following day cook. So it takes a little thought, and it can vary. That was just one example, but if you spread it out a little bit versus doing the ordering, the pickup, the putting away, the meal prep, the cooking all in one day, spread it out, and that can be helpful. And then collaborating with an SLP if there's any swallowing from some muscle weakness. And then some graphics for the eating solutions. We have on the top left that pull string chopper or the press, depending on, oftentimes I have people just order a few, read the reviews, and then see what works for them. Some people have additional arthritis, so we want to be mindful of that, or other things going on too. So not a one size fits all, but try it out and see what you think. The center is called a soup spoon. It's S''UP, and it helps items get into the handle a little. So if you do have a tremor and you're using that up and in queuing, it just prevents some spilling from occurring. I have a lot of people who like this knife to the right of that. It's called an angled rocker knife. So it doesn't look too adaptive, but it does help give some good leverage. And then on the far right are my handy dandy gadgets of my electric can opener and electric jar opener. Those are nice, especially if you're making like a chili and you're having like 6, 7 cans you're opening or whatnot, but you set it on top, press the button, and it does the work for you. It's really, really neat. And then the center graphics are just examples. There's an adaptive cutting board that gives some support, some places to stabilize food. And then I like these neat sheets, NEAT sheets. It's kind of a sticks to you napkin. So if there is any spilling, a good way that they travel really well, and they're more like adult napkins. All right, and then moving on to sleep and rest. So getting into bed can be difficult. And this is another thing where I'm like, I want to see how you do it. What's your method? What side do you sleep on? What size of bed do you have? And so there are definitely some adaptions that we can use for stabilizing. There's good techniques with that intentional, over exaggerated movement to get into bed that we use momentum. And then there's bedside commodes or urinals. And so oftentimes when people can get to the edge of bed and use those versus getting up and walking at night when it's dark, maybe your meds are off, but just having that little safety net just to use in the middle of the night so then you can get back to bed, because we want to get your sleep optimized so that you have more energy during the day and that you get that good recovery. Sometimes we'll look at sheets and pajama fabrics. So just like a long sleeve and an outerwear, pajama fabrics and your sheets. If we think about the types of fabrics that help people move a little bit better versus some friction, we'll look at that. There are really nice zipper fitted sheets. So for those who have to change those, the bottom part stays wrapped around, and then there's a zipper portion. So it makes changing that sheet a lot easier, more manageable. And then I would, really encourage you to talk with your neurologist too about medications and timing, because that can play a role with like falling asleep, staying asleep, those types of things. If you have REM behavior disorder during sleep where you're acting out, sometimes we'll have people put a body pillow in between a loved one just to kind of have a soft barrier, or sleeping in separate beds too. Care partner needs sleep. patient needs sleep, but this is a very individual choice. And you can chat with your team about that if that'd be a good option. And then for sleep, thinking of a sleep hygiene routine, whether that's, for myself personally, I'll have a timer where I'm like, all right, 8:30 begins, and then you can wash your face, you can get in your pajamas, change your clothes, and start winding down. Prepping your body for sleep can help calm, can help manage some of those motor symptoms. And then working on relaxation, meditation work. There are so many apps, there's so many YouTube. So finding one that you really like, and then just helping yourself ease into that sleep, transition from day to night. And then oftentimes for sleep and rest, we promote exercise throughout the day. So getting a good exercise, maybe stretching in the evening, that can help sleep as well. So just some graphics for that. Sometimes it's nice to keep a sleep diary, whether people have wearables like an Apple Watch or a smart ring that can track certain things. I think that gives good metrics. Not necessary, but some people, like I also like paper pencil. So a sleep diary, this is just from NIH. There's some templates on Canva, those types of things, or your therapist could make one for you, or just get a notebook and jot down when you go to sleep, maybe when you even started prepping for sleep, those types of things to find out your habits. The center graphic are those zippered fitted sheets that just make reaching a little bit better and getting that top sheet changed. To the right is a bed bar or a bed cane. Sometimes those can help steady and maybe help with some of the movement as well. And then trying to avoid screens late at night. And then the second graphic with the calm app is just one example of mindfulness meditation that can help with relaxation. All righty. And functional mobility. So around your home, with the slowness of movement, with the festination or freezing that can occur, it is really important to have someone, whether that's you're working with someone in an outpatient clinic or have someone come into the home, look at a home safety assessment. There are a couple resources on the Parkinson's Foundation, the Area on Aging, that are checklists that can have, just some ideas of things to look at. But looking at, can you get into the home safely? Is there lighting? And reducing clutter or areas where, for turning or for going down a hallway where that would be an increased fall risk. So looking at the home safety, can we set yourself up for success? A lot of times, cueing for sit to stands, practicing a wide stance with your feet while you're sitting, feet slightly back, and then shifting that weight forward to stand can be helpful. Oftentimes too, with turning, whether that be from your sink to a cabinet or a sink to a fridge, practicing like you're marching and nose follow your toes. So no crossing legs over, don't have your body go one way, but your feet another way, but practicing like a robotic turn and over exaggerating those moves to turn safely. A lot of times if you find yourself frozen, where maybe you're using a walker and your walker's going forward, but those feet are staying stuck, the care partner or a person with Parkinson's, if they have that, intentional, that insight, can say, stand up tall, weight shift, and then a big step. And so some of those freeze break strategies with turning, with walking, can be really helpful. Using mobility aids, a lot of times we will recommend the U-step walker in Parkinson's, and that's kind of working with your PT to see what's particularly beneficial for each individual. Another thing for visual or auditory cueing, for maybe some of that breathing, or for the runaway train, kind of those quick shuffling movements, you could have little tape markers down a commonly walked area. Oftentimes in the bathroom, I've put colored duct tape from the entrance and have 2 by the sink and then maybe 2 by the toilet. And so you can kind of cue those feet to make those marks or step over those marks and to place them. So we're not having a narrow base, but we have a good wide base of support for our balance. And those intentional movements as well, which I think with the mobility piece, sometimes having that care partner and I'll say, hey, so-and-so is going to be my OT at home. Is that all right? And I get the A-OK from the client I'm working with. And they're like, oh, yes, okay. Because just having that reinforcement at home and having someone else kind of cue you in a loving, genuine way can be helpful for movement. And then we want to practice task-specific movement. So if you tell me you have trouble getting from the toilet to the sink, we're going to practice that. And maybe we need the visual cues, maybe we need the auditory cues. How do we position your walker? But practicing that movement. And then for mobility as well, if there's that slowness, sometimes having an energizing song that's really enjoyable to the client can be helpful, as long as it's not overly distracting. We just don't want to fall rest. So it's kind of that middle ground. But some ideas for mobility, and again, collaborating with your PT would be great on this, and just having individualized plan, but some ideas to consider. And some graphics for that. So the top one kind of looks at that before and after with clutter, just reducing some of that visual stimuli, making clear pathways. The center graphic is a pivot disc for in the vehicle. So sometimes that's hard getting. There's some stiffness with that. So cueing the big leg swing out, and the pivot disc can be helpful. A low budget one, use a garbage bag. So that helps with the movement. And then I have a graphic at the bottom left. Did you know there's night lights for your toilet? So kind of gives you an area where we want to increase the lighting, whether that's motion sensor lights for once your feet hit the floor to the bathroom, or it's in the toilet to just help you see your surroundings a little bit better. And then we have the toilet grab bars, the tub transfer bench, which is a really safe option to get in and out of the shower safely. And then just an example of those tape cues for the floor. All right, and then exercise. We know it's really helpful for motor symptoms. So the Parkinson's Foundation does have a guideline you can get online, and it talks about their aerobic, strength, balance, and stretching. I'm sorry, my graphic is a little fuzzy right here. I'm not sure what happened, but really recommending 150 hours of moderate to vigorous a week. And that's teaming with your therapist as well to find something that is appropriate for you. But some suggestions that we often recommend for folks with Parkinson's: Tai Chi for some balance, some relaxation, mindful movement. LSVT Big has been really beneficial for motor symptoms as well. A plethora of things, but great program. Boxing, rock steady boxing. I know there's a couple around in the different communities, tango, singing, and then cycling, but make it fun. And there's often modifications that can occur. If you're like, I used to cycle, well, let's look at it. Let's see where you're having trouble. But make it fun, make it something you're going to want to do. Because if you do not like cycling at all, that's probably something we don't want to push. But maybe you like Tai Chi, or you've always had an interest, or tango, whatever it may be. So just some suggestions that exercise can help with the movement symptoms. And hobby and leisure. So oftentimes when our movement symptoms are heightened, then it gets really hard to do the things we want to do, we need to do. So as an OT, my biggest thing is I want you doing your leisure tasks, and it might look a little different, or maybe we need to explore some new options, but let's try it. It's got a lot of benefits for hand function, for socialization, connection, you name it. And so we have a tool called the interest checklist, and it's basically a big list of things in different categories. And you'd be surprised, oftentimes it's like, used to do this task, would want to do this task, or is currently doing. And so it gives good insight into, hey, let's explore this. And again, that's my theme, is make it meaningful, get creative. And then oftentimes let's adapt for safety, or maybe it might look just a little bit different, but good way to build community. And then moving on to care partners. This is something I really think is important, is bringing our care partners into our sessions. So teaching some of the sit to stand techniques that we're doing in our clinic, and then having it translate to the toilet, to the car, maybe to your favorite chair, to the bed. And they're kind of our our therapists at home. And so just being able to practice, to see what we're doing in the session and then to practice, and I have the care partner go through it a couple times, feel comfortable. And there's also those walking cues, maybe the freeze break strategies where if you're noticing someone's getting a little out front, can we pause, stand tall, weight shift, and then our big step. So I think care partners, if you have a loved one in therapies or you're interested, I think this is a really great way of being able to look at someone, and then what do they need specifically? Where are we having trouble? And then practicing it. And so also encouraging routines that include caregiver breaks. So as much as I love folks in our therapy sessions, after we do some of that teaching and the safe assisting techniques, maybe having the caregiver have a break too, phone a friend, go for a walk, do something else. And then just for the movement symptoms as well, like life alert devices, smart watches also have like a fall detection capability now, and chair alarms just for safety. So some of those can be really helpful just to alert and maybe prevent falls or notify if there has been a fall to get immediate assistance. I think another important piece would be to support the care partners, in what they feel comfortable. So that might be attending local support groups or finding respite services. Social work can be a great part of this too. The neurology nursing staff as well, nurse managers, and making sure those are reputable resources. So I have a few I will show on the future slides and we'll go over. But having your community, there's a lot of questions, and you can usually share little tricks and tips from other ones caring for someone with Parkinson's as well. And then there are some great podcasts with the Parkinson's Foundation, Substantial Matters. And so I've just listed one here for reference. Good. These are some downloadable documents that exist from the PMD Alliance, David Finney, Parkinson's Society of British Columbia, and then our Parkinson's Foundation Caring and Coping, a Care Partner's Guide. So these are all free to download online. And I think planning for the future, just, I think it's when you're ready to hear some of the information or what information you're seeking. So these are some great downloadable options. And then additional care partner resources. This is also from the Parkinson's Foundation. If you search on their website, these are some phone numbers and web links that you can kind of look at for more resources and access to care support. And then I've listed some of these with the Parkinson's Foundation helpline that can connect you to local therapists, local center of excellence, or even other professionals that you might need to be in touch with. The Caregiver Action Network is a great resource. I am at a medical center and we have a university tied to us. We have pre-OT students, we have pre-PT students and a PT school, as well as speech and language. And so oftentimes we've been able to partner some of those students that need observations, they need more experience. And so if your local area has something like this, they're great. Oftentimes people enjoy working with the youth, you're getting help, but then you're also helping their careers. They're getting some experience as well. Visiting Angels or other agency programs exist for a little bit of respite or maybe a bath aid, any way to kind of get a balance, because it's just good for a little break every now and then. And then local transportation options. I know we have a couple in our area, so I have a whole handout that we usually give folks. And then local senior centers tend to have great classes or programs. Additional care partner options. So different types of resources. These are some really great foundations just to be familiar with, that you can get some reputable education. And oftentimes they have either Zoom meetups or Zoom groups that you might find helpful. And tips for maintaining independence with movement symptoms is emphasize what each person can do. So it's really easy to be like, I can't do this, or this is really difficult, but then let's reframe it if that's appropriate and say, all right, well, what can you do? Or what can we modify so you can do it better? Routines for consistency. So whether that's pacing strategies, whether that's setting things up, the adaptions, just routine, get used to using them. And oftentimes, depending on the different stage, just being aware of what exists can be a stress relief. Even trying a few things and getting a feel for it, even before you absolutely need it, that all or nothing principle, that can help confidence, self-efficacy, and it can really empower people. And then using strategies and tools specific to each person. So I listed a lot of strategies today and hopefully some practical information. But yeah, just make sure it's right for you and that your care team is supportive of this being a option. Use visual reminders and visual cues. Use your second brain. So we know Parkinson can affect our cognition. So, I also use tons of alarms. I do tons of to-do lists. And so, don't think of that as more of a weakness. It's your second brain. You got a lot you're thinking about. There's more effort with that movement and those motor symptoms going on. So let's just help yourself out a little bit and set the timers. I had a one gentleman, we were leaving their garage and they needed to remember their keys, their phone, and their wallet. And so we just put on the door leaving that checklist. And that really helped because you're working on getting dressed, you're working on moving to get out the door. And it's like, oh wait, but I need to remember all these things. So to-do lists, take the thought out of it. Encourage daily movement and active participation. We talked about exercise a little bit and how it can be helpful to manage our motor symptoms. So find something that's fun and keep the activity going. And then a lot of times with my clients, I talk about non-negotiables. And so those are things that you just do every day. You do every day, and it's just a part of your routine. And that time frame can change, whether it's, I'm going to cycle for 5 minutes, or I'm going to, I'm going to work on this strategy for this day. I have to order these groceries, or, whatever it may be. That's just a non-negotiable. So we use that term a lot. And then pacing. So activity, rest, balance. Make sure you don't drain or deplete your energy, restores too much that it takes a long time to get back up to that homeostasis. So a little bit of activity and a little bit of rest to kind of stay in that middle zone. And it does take a team. It takes a village. And so I know some people are spread out. Maybe we're more rural or we're more in the city. And so, bring these up to your healthcare team. There are so many options that exist and different specialists we can connect you with. And so I really like this graphic that the person with PD is in the center, and then we have this big team able to support with whatever needs exist. And my final thoughts, for today's presentation are movement challenges can be managed with the right strategies, but not every solution works for everyone. So make sure it's specific to what you need and the context and the situation that you're experiencing, as well as your specific movement symptoms. There is empowerment through education and support. So ask the questions, keep the journal, and just nothing's too big or too small. Write it down and see what exists, because we're at a day and age where there is so much, but we just have to find that right fit. And then encourage open communication with your care team. Remember to be creative, have fun, and safe. So if there's any questions, I will open it up to the floor. I see a couple chats coming through.
Thank you, Rachel. Really appreciate the way that you outlined how we can ease those movement challenges day to day and what kind of tools can really be supportive to us evolving with our Parkinson's, whether we're the person with Parkinson's or the care partner in the same household. So thank you for outlining that for us in our community today.
Absolutely.
We got one question from Narita, and they're asking, can you repeat the name of the car pivot seat? Where can we find that?
Yeah. So car pivot seat is the name. And you can find those on Amazon. They're pivot discs. There's some for the feet and some for your rear. So just you can search on Amazon, and I just read the highest reviews, and I always do a dry run first, make sure it works before you put the individual, or you
Mm,
put the individual in the car. Have someone who's a little more steady try it first to get a feel for it.
yeah, a little rehearsal.
Yeah, dry run. Yeah.
Thanks,
Good
Rachel.
question.
Yeah, and another question that came in is more sort of like encompassing what we just talked about. There's a care partner who wrote in asking specifically about assisting with dressing, eating, and drinking. How do or what's the kind of like the fine line of supporting the person with Parkinson's to the point where they stay independent, but you're not sort of like interjecting the help too much? So perhaps like serving ourselves, the person with Parkinson's looks really challenging, and so the care partner is like, just let me help you. Could you suggest like how we can kind of toe that line of really encouraging the person with Parkinson's to keep doing the work and also us as our own advocates to step back?
Yes, that is such a good question. Thank you for asking that. That comes up more often than not. And it is a fine line. So I think without knowing specifics, it really depends on the stage and maybe even the setting. So it really depends on personality as well. So some folks, they're like, I want to do it myself. And then as care partners, there's so much love and support that wants to be given. Um, and so it really does take that conversation. I would ask, the care partner to the person specifically, like, do you want me to help? Are you struggling? Are you getting frustrated? I think that frustration piece is the key. And then oftentimes, if an individual is having troubles with dressing and feeding, I think those were two of them. If you try some of the strategies or you're working with a therapist to kind of fine tune it, um, the care partner could then be the cure here and there. And then there's that agreement of how much do you want me to help? Um, and the safety is a big thing. So if there's a struggle with cutting, I mean, maybe there's a balance where, hey, you can help me with cutting meat, but let me feed myself. So it's communication is key and what each person needs. Because sometimes if we see someone with their motor symptoms, they might be perfectly fine and content. But maybe a little bit of cueing or a little bit of adaptations can help. And then, I always encourage people to do as much as they can for as long as they can so that they're working on reinforcing the movements, the intentional movements, and just that independence. But it does take knowing preferences and kind of the delicacy. But yes, that question comes up a lot and it's very individual. So hopefully I answered it.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'm hearing, Rachel, is ask.
Yeah.
Ask the question. Do you want help? Are you frustrated? And also creating the boundary of how much help and when do you want me to stop? And I love the word cue, lift your arm. Okay, now like the little steps that we're learning as a team and therapy that we're going to practice at home together. So how much do you want me to cue? How much do you want? Am I cueing too much? Just ask. Just
Yeah.
ask.
And there's also with that caveat, hearing you say those things, care partner, spouse, family member, like those roles can be really delicate. And so I've played around with cues. So it doesn't sound like move your feet or stand up straight. We've played around with really soft cues that don't sound demanding, that have a good tone, and that everyone agrees upon. It just takes the right fit.
Yeah, that's great, Rachel. Thank you. We got a question from Bruce. Do you have any tips for help with taking pullover shirts off? Undressing can be difficult.
Yes. Yeah. Um, so I would, is it long sleeve or short sleeve? That would be good to know. And then again, if there's no shoulder issues, so after a certain age, sometimes we all have a little bit of can have a little bit of arthritis, but practicing where you grab the part of your shirts and you can unloop one arm or you do a big pull over. It just depends on what part are you struggling with. Is it grabbing the shirt? Is it unlooping an arm? Is it getting your arms above your head? Oftentimes too, there's so many stretchy over the head shirts. So I know people have their favorite shirts like cotton that doesn't stretch as much. But if
Mm.
you're thinking about moving forward with shopping, getting stretchier options, oftentimes if something's hard, I turn it into an exercise. So I call them dressing loops. It's a loop of TheraBand. And so we will practice. I'll time you and we'll get the TheraBand, we'll loop an arm over the head. And then we'll practice removing it. And then could you do it, 5 more times? Or could you do it with your actual shirt as well? That's even better. That's more functional. But some people, depending on where they are, can't, a dressing loop is like you can stay clothed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so looser clothes, big intentional movements to go up over the head, and then turn it into an exercise. So then you're practicing it more than once a day.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like to practice getting undressed more than once a day?
Yeah. But dressing loop, so then yeah.
Great. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
And Bruce did clarify, the shirt gets stuck on their back and it's hard to get over the head. So thank you.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that can be sometimes stiffness from the shoulders too. So working with the therapist to make sure those shoulders are loosened up, maybe even doing some stretches before you get dressed or undressed,
Mhm.
can kind of prime those areas. And
Great.
maybe sitting down to stand. It just depends on what's safe for you. If you, sometimes your balance is unsteady, if you sit and take the balance portion out and you can really focus on that effort and that movement, that's an option too.
Yeah. Lots of suggestions, Rachel. And Bruce, I hope that you find at least one of them helpful, if not all. We have another question. Why do I struggle so much to use a computer mouse? Are there some adjustments or adaptations that would help?
Yes. Oh, I love this. So so first, I wonder, are you, if it's tremor related, maybe you can clarify, or is it a bradykinesia, like that slowness where your arm just is not moving as quick? Ergonomic mouses exist. Also, one of my favorite softwares for computers would be Steady Mouse, STEADY mouse, and you can purchase it, download it. And if your cursor is, if it's using the mouse, but you have a tremor, it takes the center point of where that shake is and it steadies the mouse for you, which I've had a lot of success with that. The second piece is, where are you sitting? So positioning. Oftentimes we sit on our comfy couch and we have a laptop on our legs. And so that arm is not supported. So if you're able to get like a lap tray or maybe be at a surface where your forearm and wrist can be stabilized, that can give you more control near your hand and wrist.
Hmm, great. I didn't realize as I'm holding my mouse too, yeah, the stability that the table provides my hand to be able to move the mouse around. So thank you for bringing that awareness to me as well, Rachel. Let's see. Esther's asked, sharing, I have Parkinson's plus and I fall a lot. Any particular suggestions that's outside of physical therapy and a torolator? Torolator.
And my question, where are you falling?
Yeah.
Fall
Where?
flat,
Bathroom?
yeah. Is it upon standing? Is it
Mm,
with turning in the house, out of the house? And then I wonder what movement system is caught. Is it freezing? Is it quick steps? Um, yeah, that's a good question.
yeah. Thanks, Esther. So it sounds like we need some more unique information in order to answer it. And it could be a really good question to ask your provider.
Yeah, and I'm
Phyllis shared that their OT suggested they use lined paper to help with writing, and it seems to be helping a lot.
yes, yeah. Line paper's great. And even so I do a writing sample. So uncued, no education, and just see what your baseline writing looks like. And then line paper is great, like wide lined. And then, really focusing on intentional letters. So I always say bigger than the last, meaning if I'm writing my name, R-A, I'm trying to make my A almost bigger than my R, and then H almost bigger than my C, knowing that it won't truly be that way, but just that intention of big writing can help me bring a little more slowness and a little more legibility. Um, Oftentimes I found success with, I call it arcing. So you rest your forearm on the paper and you make a line forward and a line back. And then you really work on matching the dots. And that can really reinforce out and in, which in micrographia, we lose some of this motion. And then when that occurs, your writing can get smaller. And
Mm,
so bigger than the last, lined paper is great. They even have tactile paper. So they're just a little ridges on the line. So then you get that feedback from the pen too. Oh, I've hit the top line. each time. Um, those are great. But you got a great OT, it sounds. Good ideas.
Coming back to the mouse, curious if an ergonomic mouse would be helpful for someone who is right-handed, but they unintentionally click the right button versus wanting to click like the left index, the first finger button.
Mm. Yeah, ergonomic mouses are
Oh,
great.
had to touch the mouse,
Yeah,
right? Wait, hold on. Right
I
click, left
know.
click.
You're saying when you try to right click or left click. Can you clarify?
They unintentionally, let me see. Thank you, Keith, for writing this. So, um, the left click
Oh,
intentionally, but then they unintentionally will click the right button. So they want to do the left click, but the right finger
mhm.
will do the right button on the
Ah,
mouse. I'm
yeah.
curious if an ergonomic mouse would be helpful for that.
Um, yeah, gosh. Oftentimes I will change the sensitivity on computers too, whether that be
Hmm.
keyboards or the mouse, to avoid some of that. So changing that where if you're typing, for example, and there's that tremor that occurs and you're like, oh, I've hit the J too many times, you can change it so there's a really forceful mode to hit. And I believe there's the same with the mouse. Um, I'd play around with seeing if you don't need the right click a ton and it's more left clicking, if we could somehow just block the right too, like have a little barrier over it.
Hmm.
And that's where that creativity piece, I've used a lot of thermoplast with our splitting and close things off, or just so that even if that finger does want to click, that it's blocked so it won't ever register. Sometimes repositioning, if that middle finger is doing the right clicking, could you just move it over, maybe out of the way so it's not even on the button? So some of those positioning things take a little trial and error.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. Keith, sounds like you have some experimenting to do with that right button. Um, One last question, and just being respectful of your time, Rachel. How can we distinguish between physical limitations of just simply aging that's due to Parkinson's disease versus medication side effects?
Oh man, that's a great question too. I think keeping a movement diary can be helpful to kind of track changes. I think our loved ones who know us best or our care partners who observe us can weigh in on that as well. And usually, if you see your neuromovement specialist, your neurologist, your primary, whoever that doctor may be, um, oftentimes when you change medications, they can kind of ask the right questions to be like, do you need medication adjustments? Those types of things. Um, it's really tricky to know for sure, but I would keep a movement diary and kind of know yourself and your pattern so that when you have those checkups, you can have that conversation.
Okay, great. Movement diary, my friends, being really aware of how we move through our day to day and making a log of it so we can witness the patterns and then be able to talk from a place of data collecting, right? That's what we're doing with our providers. This is what's happening. Is this Parkinson's related? Is it not? Is this medication side effects? Is it not? So really we're collecting data here, right? Our movement diary is just that. So we're able to speak from a place of knowing and witness those patterns of what our movement actually looks like from day to day. Great, Rachel. Thank you so much for your time today. I know there's a couple of questions coming in and we're right at time, my friend. So Rachel, any final remarks that you'd like to share with our community before I let us go?
Just thank you so much for all your questions, and I hope you grab a few things from my presentation. I put my email, so feel free to reach out if there's any questions. I just really encourage you guys to talk to your healthcare team, and then find what's really individualized to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. Really appreciate the way that you show up to support our community living with and impacted by Parkinson's disease, and all of you who continue to show up for yourselves to learn more and to obtain different resources that you might not have otherwise thought of. So thank you for being here. If we didn't get to your question, that doesn't mean that we can't answer it, just respecting everyone's time here. Or if new ones come up as you digest the information, we're here to help you. Visit our website at parkinson.org. That website's on the screen here. You can also call our helpline at 1-800-4PD-INFO or email us at helpline@parkinson.org. Remember that we're ready to support you every step of the way. And before you go, we have one last favor to ask you, recognizing that your feedback is essential to shaping the Foundation's programming. As the webinar concludes, a survey will pop up on your screen. Please just take a moment to share your thoughts and let us know what topics you'd like to see in future sessions. My team and I are creating our calendar of events for next year and really looking forward to delivering on what you're asking us to learn more about. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Together we can navigate this path and continue to build a brighter future. Thank you again for being with us, and we look forward to connecting with you at future programs. Take care and be well.